Imagine creatures 30% stronger than you with hulking skulls, bone-crushing grip strength, and built-in crash helmets for skulls. Welcome to the Neanderthal world. These weren't just cavemen grunting in the dark, they were Ice Age survival machines, sculpted by nature to dominate one of the harshest climates Earth has ever seen. Picture this: broad, barrel-shaped chests, enormous nasal passages to warm frigid air, and eyes adapted to the dim glow of cave firelight. But that's just the start. These so-called primitive brutes were anything but. They made tools with precision, buried their dead, and possibly even created art before Homo sapiens ever did. In this video, we're diving deep into the anatomy, intelligence, and shocking behaviors of the Neanderthals, from their beast-like strength and eerie resilience to their mysterious disappearance. Because once you learn what they were truly capable of, one thing becomes clear. Neanderthals were absolute freaks of nature. Our story begins in the summer of 1856, deep in the limestone cliffs of Germany's Neander Valley, where a group of quarry workers stumbled upon something strange buried in the earth: bones. But not just any bones. These weren't the remains of a bear or any known animal. They were massive, thick, and unsettlingly human. The workers, unsure of what they had unearthed, passed them on to Johann Karl Fulrad, a local school teacher and amateur naturalist with a keen eye for the extraordinary. When Fulrad examined the bones, especially the thick brow ridges, the oddly shaped skull, and the unusually robust limb bones, he realized this wasn't a modern human nor anything he'd ever seen. He believed these remains belonged to an ancient, primitive human species. But when he presented his findings to the scientific community, the reaction was far from welcoming. Most experts laughed him off, ridiculing the idea that anything other than Homo sapiens could exist in the human lineage. Some claimed the skull was deformed, possibly diseased, or even that it belonged to a modern man with rickets or arthritis. Others dismissed the brow ridges as an exaggerated feature of a brutish criminal. To them, the idea of an ancient human species that didn't fit neatly into biblical timelines or known anatomy was absurd, even offensive. But Fulrad stood firm, insisting that this skull, with its low forehead, massive face, and thick bones, was the remnant of a different kind of human altogether. Eventually, as more bones began to surface in other parts of Europe, the tide started to shift. Scientists could no longer ignore the pattern: thick skulls, stocky bodies, and consistent anatomical features that pointed towards something ancient and unique. Still, for decades, Neanderthals were seen as inferior, dumb brutes, evolutionary dead ends best left forgotten. But what if that narrative was wrong? What if the first discovery in that quiet German valley didn't just uncover a fossil, but opened the door to an entirely different chapter of human history? Because as we dig deeper, we begin to see the truth. The Neanderthals weren't just some awkward evolutionary cousins. They were something else entirely, something stronger, smarter, stranger. And their story was just beginning. Now let's talk about what made Neanderthals absolute freaks of nature on a biological level. Because these weren't just humans with thicker accents and fur coats. These were survival machines sculpted by the Ice Age itself. Let's start at the top. Their skulls were unlike anything walking the earth today. Massive, low-sloping foreheads, thick, double-arched brow ridges that jutted out like bone armor, and skulls so thick they'd been compared to natural helmets. Their brain cases were actually larger than ours, averaging around 1,600 cubic centimeters compared to our modern 1,400, though shaped differently, elongated and flatter at the back, more adapted to spatial processing and visual depth, possibly giving them better memory and environmental awareness in the dark, dangerous forests they lived in. Moving down to their face, things get even more extreme. They had absolutely gargantuan noses, wide and tall, with internal nasal cavities far larger than any human alive today. This wasn't just for show. These oversized nasal passages acted like internal heaters, warming and humidifying icy air before it reached their lungs, a crucial adaptation for surviving sub-zero temperatures in glacial Europe. Their midfaces also projected forward, giving them a distinctive, pulled-out facial structure, something almost no other human species has. Their jaws were built like vices with powerful bite force and incredibly large front teeth that weren't just for eating, they used them like a third hand. The wear patterns on Neanderthal teeth tell us they routinely gripped animal hides between their teeth while cutting and processing them, literally pulling and tearing with their mouths in coordination with their hands. This habitual wear left their incisors ground down and polished like tools. Now, let's get into the body, and this is where things get truly beastly. Neanderthals were short but powerfully built, with compact torsos, massive rib cages, and extremely thick limb bones. Their femurs and humeri were so dense and thick, they rivaled that of Olympic lifters, and their pelvises were flared and heavy, optimized for strength and stability over long-distance speed. Imagine someone barely over 5 feet tall, but able to haul half a reindeer on their back through a snowstorm. Their bones show a shocking number of injuries: broken limbs, cracked skulls, crushed ribs. But what's more incredible is how many of those injuries healed. These weren't one-off accidents. Neanderthals lived through impacts that would kill a modern human and kept going. Their skeletons tell a story of close-quarters hunting, violent survival, and superhuman durability. Even their fingers were thick and strong, more like blunt tools than dexterous human hands. Altogether, their anatomy wasn't just functional, it was terrifyingly efficient. They weren't built to run, they were built to endure. To smash, to wrestle prey to the ground, and survive in conditions that would kill most modern humans in hours. The more you look at their bones, the more one truth becomes undeniable. Neanderthals were not weaker versions of us. They were our Ice Age cousins, but physically, they were monsters. Now imagine stepping into Ice Age Europe, an unforgiving wasteland of snow-covered tundras, jagged glaciers, and howling winds so cold they could freeze skin in minutes. This was a world ruled by mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, cave bears the size of SUVs, and saber-toothed predators lurking in the shadows. In this brutal environment, where temperatures regularly plunged far below freezing, Neanderthals didn't just survive, they thrived. Their existence in these deadly landscapes wasn't a fluke. It was the result of ingenious adaptations and survival innovations that pushed the limits of what early humans could achieve. One of their greatest weapons was fire. Not just using it, but mastering it. Neanderthals didn't rely on luck or lightning strikes. They managed fire like a tool. They learned to maintain embers for days, possibly weeks, and used a variety of fuels, from wood and bone to charcoal, and even dry dung. Evidence suggests they understood fire transport, carrying smoldering embers from site to site in bark containers or hollowed bones, ensuring warmth and cooking power wherever they roamed. They likely built stone hearths and used controlled burning to manage campsites, adding insulation from the bitter cold. But survival wasn't just about fire, it was about strategy, coordination, and care. Neanderthals operated in tight-knit groups, and their hunting techniques proved it. They hunted big game like bison and mammoths, not with long-range weapons, but up close and personal, ambushing prey in narrow ravines, working as a unit to drive animals off cliffs or into traps. This required planning, communication, and trust. Injuries from these brutal hunts were common, but here's where things get even more human. Neanderthals took care of each other. Fossil records show individuals who lived years after sustaining crippling injuries. Missing limbs, blindness, chronic pain, survival only possible with help from their group. This wasn't a savage, cold species. It was a deeply communal one. They shared food, tended the wounded, and protected the weak. Their campsites show signs of structured living, specific areas for butchering, fire-making, and tool repair. Some sites even contain natural windbreaks built with mammoth bones or stone walls, suggesting they modified their environment for long-term use. Far from primitive, Neanderthals were early engineers, crafting survival from ingenuity and teamwork. And in doing so, they built a lifestyle not of desperation, but of dominance. Because in a world where everything was trying to kill them, Neanderthals didn't just fight back. They adapted, endured, and outlived the odds for nearly 300,000 years. If you think Neanderthals were mindless savages, think again. Because when it comes to brain power, they were anything but primitive. In fact, their brains weren't just larger than ours on average, but differently organized. Studies suggest they had an expanded visual cortex in regions of the brain associated with motor control and spatial awareness, giving them razor-sharp senses and a deep understanding of physical environments, perfect for tracking prey through dense forests or navigating icy terrain. While they may have had less brain volume dedicated to complex language compared to modern Homo sapiens, it's clear they were intelligent in ways we're only beginning to understand. Take Shanidar Cave in Iraq, where a Neanderthal man with severe injuries, a crushed leg, blindness in one eye, and a withered arm, was found to have survived for years. That only happens when a group cares for its own. Then there's the burials. Multiple Neanderthal sites show clear evidence of deliberate burial practices, sometimes with flowers or tools placed beside the dead, suggesting symbolic thinking and emotional depth. And it doesn't stop there. Recent discoveries in Spanish caves have revealed abstract red symbols painted on walls more than 65,000 years ago, long before modern humans ever arrived in the region, proving Neanderthals were capable of symbolic art. They also made wooden spears, some over 2 meters long, crafted with fire and stone tools, and likely used for thrusting at close range. Evidence of hide-scraping tools and pigment-stained shells show they processed animal skins for clothing and may have even decorated themselves with colored minerals. This wasn't just about survival. This was culture, intention, and creativity. The image of the dumb, club-wielding caveman is dead wrong. The real Neanderthal was intelligent, skilled, and maybe even spiritual. They didn't just endure the Ice Age, they lived, thought, and left their mark on the world. Just when you think you figured out Neanderthals, they throw you another curveball, because beneath all that muscle and survival instinct, there's a darker, stranger side to their culture. Archaeologists have uncovered bones bearing unmistakable signs of cannibalism. Long bones split open for marrow, skulls cracked and scorched by fire, and even deliberate defleshing marks left by stone tools. In some caves, these weren't the remains of prey animals, they were other Neanderthals. Whether it was survival cannibalism during harsh winters or part of some ritual practice, we may never know. But it's chilling to realize these ancient humans may have sometimes feasted on their own. And then there's the flip side, evidence that Neanderthals used natural medicines. Traces of bitter plants like yarrow and chamomile have been found in dental plaque, plants with no nutritional value but known medicinal properties, possibly used to treat infections or pain. One Neanderthal even had traces of poplar bark in his teeth, containing salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. These weren't mindless brutes, they were experimenting, observing, learning. They weren't primitive, they were human in every sense. Their lives were filled with pain, triumph, healing, and maybe even mourning and ceremony. And yet, despite all their adaptations and intelligence, they vanished. But before we talk extinction, remember this. The Neanderthals weren't just another branch on the evolutionary tree. They were a mirror, a genetic shadow of us. And the story of their disappearance is as strange and haunting as their life. For nearly 300,000 years, Neanderthals ruled the cold and wild edges of Europe and Asia, thriving in a world that would kill most of us within days. So what happened? Why did this Ice Age champion suddenly disappear around 40,000 years ago? The answer isn't simple, and it's still debated. Some researchers blame climate change, pointing to abrupt temperature swings that destabilized ecosystems and wiped out crucial food sources. Others believe inbreeding and low genetic diversity made them vulnerable to disease and slow to adapt. But the most popular theory involves us, Homo sapiens. As modern humans expanded into Europe, competition grew fierce. We had lighter builds, more efficient tools, and possibly stronger social networks. Maybe we outbred them, maybe we outfought them, or maybe we simply absorbed them. Because here's the twist, Neanderthals didn't vanish completely. Modern genetic studies reveal that 2 to 4% of the DNA in non-African humans today is Neanderthal. That means you, right now, are likely carrying their genetic legacy. Bits of their immune system, skin tone, and even brain chemistry live on inside us. They didn't just disappear, they became a part of who we are. And the more we learn, the more blurred the line becomes between us and them. So what really happened to the Neanderthals? Was it murder, merging, or natural selection? In our next episode, we'll dig even deeper into the DNA, the archaeological clues, and the final moments of our closest extinct relatives. Because the truth is, We didn't replace the Neanderthals, we are their echo. Neanderthals weren't your ancestors' slow-witted cousins. They were our equals, maybe even our Ice Age superhumans. They built, cared, hunted, healed, and left behind a legacy written in our DNA. If this blew your mind, hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden history, and drop a comment below. What shocked you most about these ancient freaks of nature?